This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana. Good evening and welcome to First Issues. We're still focusing on remarkable stories of entrepreneurship and vision, tonight specifically from right here in Botswana, a nation often celebrated for its stability and diamond-driven economy. But as we know, the true strength of any economy lies in its diversity and the resilience of its small businesses. Here in Botswana, as in many emerging markets, small, medium and micro-sized enterprises, or SMMEs, are the lifeblood of economic growth. The World Bank estimates that formal SMMEs contribute up to 40% of the national income in emerging economies and create 7 out of every 10 jobs. In Botswana specifically, SMMEs are a critical engine for progress. Data from a July 2022 TransUnion Botswana report titled "Botswana SMMEs Look to Data-Driven Tools to Drive Growth" indicates that SMMEs account for about 15 to 20% of the nation's GDP and provide employment for about 50% of the private sector workforce. One of the most inspiring examples of this entrepreneurial spirit is Goitseone Matsididi, an award-winning innovator who's not just building a company but is helping to shape the future of Botswana with Revision Africa. Revision Africa is a product by innovative enterprise Elayna Zhara Research Lab. The product comprises a groundbreaking device for the blind and visually impaired and a mobile app that can read text in real time and interpret sign language. This technology doesn't just address a market need, it tackles a significant social challenge by redefining accessibility and empowering whole communities. By developing and commercializing this technology, the company is fostering a culture of innovation and positioning Botswana as a competent player in technological solutions for social good. But what inspired Goitseone to come up with this product, decisively thrusting herself into entrepreneurship? Goitseone, thank you so much for coming on First Issues and affording us your time. Today we're here to talk to you about your entrepreneurship journey, but specifically focusing on a product that you are working on or have been working on. Where did the idea of Revision Africa come from? And I believe this is something that led you to become an entrepreneur.
The journey of Revision began with my husband and I. We went to school, Botswana Accountancy College. So while we were at Botswana Accountancy College, we had a shared passion for the same things. For him, it was from lived experiences because his grandmother was blind. For me, I used to volunteer for the Botswana Association of the Blind and Partially Sighted. That allowed us to be able to work together towards the product Revision. So as we kept on working on ideas on how to materialize Revision, bring it to life, we realized that most of the challenges that individuals that have visual impairments are facing in Botswana and in Africa is that the assistive devices that are there are not localized. So we saw the gap and we decided to venture into entrepreneurship to provide a device and software that is localized, that understands the indigenous languages of Botswana and those of Africa.
What was a realization that you had, an eye-opening moment that maybe even shaped the way you viewed entrepreneurship once you embarked on this journey?
I think for us, it was just getting into the space of assistive technologies. It's a space that is very new for Africans to develop for it. So you find that in Botswana, after Deftronics, Revision is a product that comes after 10 years of only one company building or solving for persons with disabilities. So for us, what kind of had a pivotal moment in our journey was just seeing the impact that Revision could have, not just to our grandparents, our sisters and brothers here in Botswana, but the millions of people across Africa. By Longhover, they also don't have opportunities or access to affordable assistive devices. So that really made us see the impact that Revision could have, and then also just understanding that in the deep tech space, it takes so much time for you to get to a commercial space. So that on its own helped us to get back to sort of a place of coming with the code design with the end users, allowing us to continuously iterate on the products and the services that we're making, so that we don't exclude and build for problems that don't exist.
Once you were in the thick of things, you know, the thick of being an entrepreneur, do you believe that you were prepared for what you were experiencing?
I honestly don't think we were prepared for this journey. We honestly just thought, okay, we've got a great problem to solve for. We've got the right solution to solve for, because my husband is a software engineer. So it was easier for us to create the software for it. We were not ready for the hurdles that we're currently facing when it comes to trying to build a physical device. It's very expensive to build a physical device that will serve the purpose the way it's supposed to. This is where now we decided to then create a mobile application that solves the same problem, but is more affordable, is more quicker to make, it's more easier to implement, as opposed to the challenges that we keep on facing on a daily basis when it comes to building a physical device. So yeah, no, we were not ready. We were not ready for this journey. It's a tedious and financially taxing journey. We were not ready for it.
ta bitsa motho gore motho a leke mangwala go duela metsi.
Mama, ka mala jana o tlhoka le go tsamela kgakala gore go duela metsi. FNB re diretse tiro motho.
Senthe.
Ma kwa go marekisetsong a ile gore ana le tshwala FNB Cash Plus. So se tlhokanyela ke o mangwa gago mo tirisong le reference number e bon dinomoro tse diriswang go rurahatsa dituelo tsa gago.
FNB what?
FNB Cash Plus.
Madonna makante ke ngonto sampolele ka mananeo a FNB ya Cash Plus.
La ha re le nna ke gone go utang ka dona ebile ke be ke sa dumele.
Deposit cash and coins, withdraw from e-wallet, make cardless cash withdrawals, buy prepaid airtime and electricity, pay bills such as water, electricity and many more.
FNB. Dona. Nyawa ena ke ra se thare mpare motiki. Na ke ra go motho hela mamarapedi. O tola skontere hela. O bua go semosong wa go duela semosong. Manane wa FNB Cash Plus.
FNB, how can we help you?
Thank you so much for staying with First Issues. Our conversation with Goitseone Matsididi, who's the co-founder and CEO of Elayna Zhara Research Lab, continues, where we will be discussing their product Revision Africa.
Before we talk some more on the challenges that you speak of, right, I want us to focus first on the accomplishments, the positives of this journey. What have those been? Maybe you could share with our viewers some of your achievements.
A lot of people, when they hear of Revision, they think, the company Elayna Zhara Research Lab, they think it's been existent for the longest time, just based off of the accomplishments that we have achieved in such a short period of time, 18 months of operation, but we've already secured our patent. When you speak innovation and when you speak business, a patent is something that is extremely important to a business competitiveness and just the security of the innovation that you're creating. We have exhibited in 3 countries, Botswana, obviously, South Africa, and Kenya, where we had access to over 5,000 live demos when we were exhibiting. For us, that was a validating moment based on the feedback that we got, that what we're building, we're not just solving a problem that is existing in our minds, but it's a global problem to assistive devices in Africa.
It really does sound like it has been a beautiful journey, and not to overshadow those accomplishments with my next question, but I wanted to go back now to the challenges. You were talking about some of the hurdles that you're not prepared for. So at this point, I'd like for you to share what some of those are, aside from the obvious funding issues. I
think maybe let me take you back to when we registered the company 18 months ago. We started this company in debts. Why? An opportunity came through. We're supposed to go to Silicon Valley, and when you speak Silicon Valley in the tech space, that is where innovation happens. So we had that opportunity where USAID was funding us to go and exhibit Revision, and at this point we're just 1 month having registered the company, but someone already believes in the vision that we have. So the nitty-gritties of trying to pull resources together so that you represent not just yourself as an African child, but Africa as a whole, that we are capable and we're ready to innovate and solve for ourselves. So when that didn't go so well, when the ability to pull resources together, because we are not yet revenue generating, left the company in debts before it could even start. So for the first year, we were just really building softwares for external clients, and that has been one of the things that has fueled how we're able to overcome a company that started with debts to a company that was able to come up with 3 prototypes in a span of 18 months and testing them by building softwares for external clients. I think one of the personal things that I experienced is that around the same time I had recently given birth, and I had an operation that didn't close for 6 months. So I was juggling trying to keep the business afloat as well as being a mother. That was very challenging. The challenges of being a woman, a mother, a wife in a space that is male dominated was it still is a hard hurdle to maneuver, but I think I have the grit, I have the focus, and I have the vision to know that I can push this company to become whatever it is that we envision it to be.
I'm so sorry to hear about the health challenge, but I hope that everything is now well. Moving on, do you reckon that there's anything that you could have done differently that maybe could have propelled you further? I mean, 18 months for what you've already accomplished is it is commendable, but do you think that there's anything that you could have done differently?
Not so much, but there's always room for improvement. I think for us it would be documentation of processes within the company. That's something that we didn't start off with from the get-go, and I feel like if we had documentation for all the processes of how we do things, how we expect things to go, a proper implementation plan from the get-go, I feel like we we would definitely be at a much better position right now as opposed to where we are. And I think one of the things for us would be just the access to end users, especially here in Botswana, where it's a very fragmented space. You're solving for people, so you cannot just access persons with disabilities without consent. For us, we're solving for students primarily, because the goal of Revision, or the mission of Revision Africa, the product, is for us to bring students by specifically those who have visual impairments or those who are deaf, because we actually have the capacity to translate sign language into text for them and audio for nalo and sign language. When we do that, we want them to come back into mainstream education so that baskaba iswa kwa lekwa aba itute at the same pace with every single student who is abled.
In conclusion, the story of Goitseone Matsididi and Revision Africa is a narrative about the vital role of SMMEs in laying the foundation for the prosperous Botswana of tomorrow, proving that true economic growth is built one vision, one innovation, and one empowered individual at a time.
ta bitsa motho gore motho a leke mangwala go duela metsi.
Mama, ka mala jana o tlhoka le go tsamela kgakala gore go duela metsi. FNB re diretse tiro motho.
Senthe.
Ma kwa go marekisetsong a ile gore ana le tshwala la FNB Cash Plus. So se tlhokanyela ke o mangwa gago mo tirisong le reference number e bong dinomoro tse diriswang go ruragatsa dituelo tsa gago.
FNB what?
FNB Cash Plus.
Madonna makante ke mo ntse samplele ka mananeo a FNB ya Cash Plus.
Hela, ha re le nna ke gone go utwang ka dona. Ebile ke be ke sa dumele.
Deposit cash and coins, withdraw from e-wallet, make cardless cash withdrawals, buy prepaid airtime and electricity, pay bills such as water, electricity and many more.
FNB.
Dona. Nyawa ene ke ra sa thare. Mpare mo dike. Na ke ra go motho hela mamarapedi. Botola skontere hela. O bua go semosong wa go duela semosong. Manane wa FNB Cash Plus.
FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues. For many entrepreneurs, the mention of debt recovery creates images of confrontation and perceived failure. But in today's dynamic landscape, the most effective form of debt recovery is ethical debt recovery. A process built on partnership, transparency, and a mutual goal to keep businesses alive and contributing to the economy. This message is particularly critical here in Botswana, where small, medium, and micro enterprises, or SMMEs, form the backbone of job creation and economic diversification. The sector is incredibly vulnerable to shocks, as clearly evidenced during the pandemic. An article published by the International Journal of Advanced Business Studies by Pearson Chaurura and Javaid Da, titled An Evaluation of the Nature and Extent of the Challenges Encountered by Small, Medium and Micro Enterprises (SMMEs) in Botswana during COVID-19, states that financial inadequacy is a major challenge. The study reveals that 75.4% of SMMEs cited financial challenges as their most pressing issue during recent economic downturns, and nearly 90% experienced a sharp drop in sales. The greatest risk an entrepreneur can take when faced with financial difficulty is remaining silent. Many feel shame or fear that contacting the bank or their financial partner means the end of their business. This could not be any further from the truth. The core principle of ethical debt recovery is simple: reach out before it's too late. In that light, what are your options? What should be your first steps? We have this conversation with Head of Recoveries, Corporate Commercial and Investment Banking at one of the local commercial banks, Kefilwe Mosweu.
Debt in and of itself is quite it's difficult to talk about, to confront, and to actually navigate, right? But it is especially more so for small, medium enterprise owners. Seeing that you're in this space, what advice would you give them when they find themselves being overwhelmed by the debt that they find themselves in?
In this case of a small and medium enterprise, you find that, especially with the current economic outlook, business is not or may not be doing so great. But the question is, what do you do in circumstances that you have cash constraints? The prudent thing I advise business is to approach the bank. Let them know what your challenges are before the situation gets dire. The reason that is important is because from a contractual standpoint, if they're not proactive in doing that, they may not necessarily get the right support that a bank official or a financial advisor may give them in time, or alternatively, they may find themselves in a litigation situation earlier than they ought to have.
When I can't be servicing my facility for a plethora of reasons, and most of them are usually out of my control, what are my rights?
That is actually one of the best questions I've had around this subject, because it always goes down to the contract between the enterprise and the creditor. That is how we determine what your rights are. However, if you are an enterprise and you believe that maybe your rights are being compromised or they're being stifled, you have a right in law to defend the action before court. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is why the courts are there in the first place. But it is always important, and I advise clients this, that always get legal advice. Why? Because it is important that a legal practitioner helps you understand the nature of your rights under the contract. Sometimes clients misinterpret their rights and obligations on a contract. So for that reason, I always emphasize the engagement of a legal professional to advise on any aspect of the contract.
If all else fails, from this conversation, what do you need an entrepreneur, business owner who's watching our conversation to get out of this?
Particularly for small, medium enterprises in this current economic outlook, it is important to get your conversations with the bank going early should you find yourself cash constrained. However, should the mechanisms available to you not be enough to remedy your situation, still always approach the bank, because the primary obligation or goal for a commercial recoveries division is to collect the bank's money within reason, within the law. So the sooner you have a conversation, there may be a legal process running parallel, a conversation, and you may find that you actually save your situation.
In conclusion, banks and financiers are invested partners, not adversaries. They would much rather restructure a loan, consolidate debt, or offer short-term repayment relief to a client who shows honesty and initiative than go through the lengthy, expensive process of liquidation. Ethical debt recovery is a lifeline that entrepreneurs must never be afraid to grab a hold of. And on that note, we've come to the end of tonight's installment of Thursday Issues. Till next time, good night. This program was proudly brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.